Previously in X-Men, 3 of the X-Men are making a daring escape in an orbiting space station, and they find themselves out in the vacuum of space suddenly as they burst through an exterior wall, surprisingly. And we're left on that cliffhanger. And we are here. We are Group of 7 Comics. that is Chris Sanagan coming at you from Guelph, Ontario. I am Jason Lapidus coming at you from Richmond Hill, Ontario, just outside Toronto. And we are Group of 7 Comics, and we have a weekly live stream where we talk about the X-Men comics that form the basis of everything great about X-Men from this point on. They laid the foundation for the hit comics of the 1980s, the breakthrough, breakout, generational animated series of the 1990s, and the mega film franchise leading up to 13 films in the 2000s and beyond into the MCU. Chris,
I would say that's a lot of films. And then you're like, but the MCU is at like 26. So
yes, but the MCU is its own studio, and they were all like successful movies.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some of the X-Men films are varying results.
They don't fall that category of successful.
No, and also spans 20 years, they don't have the leadership, I would say, that the MCU, Kevin Feige provides. There's a reason he's so special, and maybe the X-Men the X-Men films are a really great way to look at, what happens when you have a huge cast of characters, so many stories you can pick from, but there's not a great visionary leader at the helm. Maybe that's what you can see the difference between the two franchises and how amazing, like, makes you appreciate Feige more, considering, of course, that no one else has ever done what Feige has done. So,
right.
I'm not going to bash. I don't think we should bash the X-Men movies because
I enjoyed them.
It's so good,
Bring back James Marsden.
Are you the hashtag? Is that some?
The Marsden cut, more Marsden.
Today we are looking at not just us. We are looking at not just me.
Not just you.
There you go. I'm still learning. We're looking at X-Men 99.
The
Very
Death Star.
exciting.
The Death Star.
New, all different X-Men, Death Star Rising. Now, I didn't even notice that, right? This is 1966. Sorry, 1976.
76.
It's a year before before Star Wars comes out. The phrase Death Star is not in the public lexicon. So that's pretty funny. I didn't even think about the Death Star Rising.
Death Star Trench Run, but with the X-Men.
That would be a great thing too. I'd be into that. One of the reasons I didn't think about that is partially because I'm reading it in this format, Classic X-Men number 7. This is our 7th episode, right, as we are essentially reading the original versions of the Classic X-Men run. So that's what I'm reading, which is just a reprinting with very little more material. And I'm also reading it, as I have the other ones, in X-Men Essentials Volume 1, which is in black and white. So that's, I'm not doing a good job showing it. There you go. So I didn't see the cover with the same consciousness as that I'm seeing it now, even though I made the promo, the title card. So I had that image and I was cutting and pasting with it. So I just didn't notice.
And I'm reading it on DVD-ROM. There you go.
Which is insane.
40 years of X-Men.
Yes.
On that. So that's been fun.
It's
they're just scans. They're just scans of the books.
Yes. Not recolored.
Staples and all.
True. And I think, if a person reads a digital version now, of course they're reading on Comixology.
Mm-hmm.
Or does Marvel have its own app for reading, or like a Marvel?
There's a Marvel digital service, because every time you buy a new comic book, it's like, here's the code for the digital version.
So if someone was to read it that way, they would be reading digital recolors.
Right.
They're not reading scans of the original issues the way you are. You are reading it almost as close as a person could possibly do without having the originals in hand.
I am all about the authenticity, and I'm reading it as crappily as it probably looked back then.
Maybe you say crappily, but I think that the newsprint.
But I jest because I actually didn't enjoy it. So
good. Chris, you and I make comics.
Sometimes.
We have a comic book series called Group of Seven Comics, and the 7th issue came out in the spring. And I've got a copy, surprisingly, right here. If someone is interested, if you viewers at any point are interested in learning more about Group of Seven Comics, head to groupofsevencomics.ca, and that's the number 7, as you can see up in that corner. There, it is the number. Groupofsevencomics.ca. This is issue 7, which is the first part of our Peregrines arc, where we're looking at another adventure in World War I, featuring 4 frontline nurses who do double duty as spies. And they go on amazing adventures. They are, how did you phrase it? You say they are, you have the home front defenders, like that
Oh, yeah, frontline nurses, home front defenders. The Peregrines protect us from threats unbelievable and unknown.
There you go. So you and I are makers. We make comics. We love reading comics. We've been fans of X-Men since the day you and I met. We talked about X-Men.
Did we?
We did.
I mean, I remember the rest of the conversation. I don't remember X-Men.
X-Men absolutely came up as being something that was because the movies had.
Yeah, movies are out for sure.
Right. So that was like superhero movie. We talked about that.
That's cool.
Batman animated series. We talked about Wilco. We talked about the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
And then
I bet you we talked about Batman animated series and then also connected that to the X-Men cartoon. I wouldn't be surprised if we made that.
We probably did. Probably. All right. So X-Men 99.
X-Men 99.
Here we go.
Yeah, X-Men take on the Death Star. Here we go.
X-Men versus the Death Star. In the last issue, as I was saying before, the X-Men are basically in 2 different groups, which is like a fun, team or team trope of movies and comics, where you split the team up into 2 parts or more to tell 2 simultaneous stories. Banshee, Jean Grey, who is not an active member of the team at this moment in time, and Wolverine are up in a space station. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, this issue starts with characters in bubbles, which is maybe what we would expect to see the other X-Men. Like it feels like it's sort of the wrong group in bubbles in space.
Yeah. There's a lot going on this cover. One thing that I do find, so Colossus is, even if we escape the energy spheres, these Sentinels, how can we survive in a vacuum of space? It looks like the Sentinels have actually kind of given them air bubbles to live in and to survive in. So what my question is are the Sentinels actually doing them a favor?
I don't know. Do you like this view better, by the way?
It's cool. I also like how Cyclops' optic beams just are in the sphere, and they're not strong enough to burst the bubble. But it's almost like the Sentinels had one of those bubble machines, like, and it captured each one. I just think the X-Men should show a little gratitude. They're in space, but they're surviving because the Sentinels have set them up to survive. That's
true. And I've been presenting this ongoing narrative that Colossus is being set up to be the breakout character, where he's intended to be. He is sort of like part Superman, kind of part Iron Man in the sense that he's metallic. His costume is bright. He has the primary colors. He looks like he's a real good-hearted soul, even though he's red commie. They don't ever treat him with disrespect, I find. At least not intentionally, with sort of anti-communist rhetoric. So he's being framed often front and center. And I find that really interesting that there he is as, again, the sort of the focus of the cover.
It feels almost like that. I totally agree with you. It feels like almost that dialogue would be coming out of Cyclops' mouth instead of coming out of Colossus'.
Yeah, it could have easily, but he's such a dynamic looking figure. I really like that drawing of him too. And I just realized now Banshee's on the cover as well. Yeah. Even though he's not part of this this group of characters, At least not that thread, you know?
No.
Anyway, interesting. Should
Very
we begin?
Let's get in there.
All right. And
Death Star Rising.
neat, creepy looking cover. I mean, sorry, splash page.
Yeah.
Like that coloring.
What's going on there?
Well, it's supposed to show that they're in the darkness, you know? And
yes, yeah.
now, I have to admit, I'm actually doing something like this right now where I'm coloring pages of Thor comic.
Sure.
From Heroic Tales, #1, which we'll be putting out next year, hopefully, where Thor is underwater in like deep, murky yuck. And
right.
it's challenging to try and use the palette available to create a sense of this without just coloring everything blue. So Wolverine looks wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That just looks like it didn't work as an idea. Coloring his blue parts yellow and his yellow parts blue does not communicate what it needs to. But Banshee's coloring I actually find works really well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you just do some simple color work, like you think his yellow parts, make them dark. And, you know, so you're adding a layer of blue ink over top, and you've made his green darker by adding blue to that, and then give his face that kind of magenta, or like maybe a 25% magenta plate or whatever it is. And I find it works. It looks like Banshee's in the dark.
Yeah, no, it does.
Jean, her weird highlights on her dress doesn't really work for me, but Wolverine doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I also really the script on this page, they all start these, a minute ago this was happening, a minute ago. I actually really it's great. I love it. It's a very it kind of builds the tension. Claremont's writing on this, and I was thinking about it afterwards. And it almost feels like this kind of language should be delivered by like a Shatner-esque soliloquy. Like I feel a minute ago, like he just would give that kind of gravitas to the Claremont writing. I actually do love this writing. I just think that it lends itself to this exposition that a real hammy actor could just chew the scene with.
Totally. I'm going to show you something. Okay, you ready?
Do it.
Look at this color.
Okay, so look at Wolverine. Right.
Corrected.
Yeah, corrected again.
And they all look like they're in space or in the dark.
Yeah.
And it works. I also really love that Death Star font. Like that looks really that's cool. Anyway, thought that was interesting.
Wow.
So it's neat how you do it 10 years later and you make a change, and
which is what we've seen so far in all the books, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I do find it overall we're going to see the writing is as usual. Claremont is verbose, and I find he overwrites. He writes more than he needs to get the story across. But as an intro, I like this intro as well.
Yeah, I really do like this intro.
Right, you spend some time getting back into it, and I think that's a nice thing to do. So just on quick credits here: Chris Claremont being the writer, Dave Cockrum being the penciler, and Frank Chiaramonte as inker.
Okay.
And there you go. And then colorist, I imagine they get more than one. And there's also some serious inconsistencies with coloring overall in old comics. But Michelle Wrightson, which might be the wife of Bernie Wrightson, I do not know. All right.
Okay. All right.
So these X-Men are in space. No conversation about, they're out of air, yes. Vacuum, temperature, pressure, those things. How long can they survive?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the real story is, but in recent sci-fi, people pop quite quickly.
They do.
They freeze and pop.
But they're X people.
Sure.
Space has a different impact on mutants, apparently.
Right. Okay. Great.
We'll give it that.
Great page, though. Like that Banshee drawing.
Yeah.
This next page, page 2, I don't know about you. I'd find it doesn't match.
So the other thing is I read it. Is it intended to be read the column down from top to bottom, then read the next column down from top to bottom? I read it, kind of happening simultaneously. So, first panel on the left-hand side, things have changed, and then read the next panel on the right-hand side, things have changed.
Right.
But I think they're meant to be read, left panel, then down, then down, then down, then down. I thought about that afterwards. What do you think?
I think the narrative works both ways.
Okay.
You can read it as if it's like an edit quickly between scenes, but this is one of the things that comics can do that other forms can't do. You can tell two stories simultaneously without having to edit between them, and it actually just works. Like nothing else works this way. So this is a neat exploration of events, of showing us that events are happening concurrently. So I like that. I just don't enjoy this particular page's narrative, and I don't enjoy the cartooning on it as much.
No.
So I'm a little bored.
Kind of easy robotic computerized Cyclops head, though.
Yeah, I don't really know what any of that, like what he was kind of going for, but it didn't really work on me. So quickly we see that idea of the bubbles, right? Yeah. So weird, like it's this huge cover gimmick, and they use it so quickly here, and that's the end of it.
That's the end of it.
It's sort of like they weren't sure how big of a deal it was going to be for the issue.
Right.
It's also, I don't know, it's lame to me. That was really lame. Bubbles. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Let's past it.
I know.
So the X-Men are trying to find where the other X-Men are. They're using Cerebro and other technology to try and figure out where their compatriots are. And then we get this interesting cut to the rounded corner panels, which in this case symbolize that it's television broadcast.
Right, yeah.
You know?
With Geraldo.
With Geraldo Rivera.
There's those pop culture references, right?
Yeah, of the time, very much. And they're giving us like a good overview. Like this is the context in which the story is happening. There is anti-mutant sentiment happening. There are protests. There are burnings. You know. Yeah,
and so in that anti-mutant piece up the top there with mutants written up there, who is that supposed to be in the back? I mean, it's kind of Wolverine-ish, but it's got the eyes of the Sentinels.
Right. So I have not seen Magneto unmasked in this run yet.
No, we have not.
So I do not know how Dave Cockrum would render Magneto, or I haven't seen what the last version of Magneto was.
Okay.
But at some point in time, Quicksilver and Magneto have that hair sometimes.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, probably.
So it might be just an allusion to that a little bit, or just a feral beast of some kind.
Also, where do people get sticks? Like, I know that, like, when you're in a mob,
hitting sticks.
I guess. I mean, they're like the hitting sticks. Like, they seem rather fashioned. Like, they're not just like sticks that fell off a tree.
I have one. For a good,
You got a hitting stick.
A posse beaten.
Right.
If the posse gathers, I have a stick for beaten. It's available. I'm not going to tell you where it's hiding in the house. Quick thing about Judge Chalmers here. Judge Chalmers is an advocate fighting against anti-mutant sentiment. Yes. He doesn't look the part.
You're right. He doesn't quite seem that he would be the one. But.
No, he has a few of the characteristics that would go along with someone who's
quite
demonized mutants.
Yeah, I guess. Never judge a book by its cover. There you go.
Never judge a book by its cover. That is a good lesson to learn.
It also has the description, my favorite description of the international space team ever. International, interracial, intersexual.
That is wild.
I know.
I did not notice that. I must have not been reading. Where is that?
So in the second last panel, in that top word blurb, it talks about this team launching, and you can in the panel before you can get a sense there's Nightcrawler. You can say his eyes in there, but they basically say, as you can see, it's a new era of interstellar space travel with international crews who are international, interracial, and intersexual.
That is,
and it's something for everyone.
I've got to show you. I got to show you this. You ready?
Yeah.
So it's that panel in the middle.
Yeah.
You won't be able to read it. But
I can't read it. It's too fuzzy.
Yes, it is too fuzzy. That the purple highlight on that cylinder goes higher on mine than it does on yours.
Oh.
Yours is cut off at the top of that.
Yeah.
Right there at that end line. It stops. They've colored up because they're filling in space where they've edited out those words.
It doesn't have intersexual or
where
interracial.
it says international crew.
Wow. Well, that's a boring copy of that book. Mine's way better.
I can't believe it. Yeah, so mine just says
I love it because Claremont
they're
was like, why did I
augment
write
Dark
that?
Horse international crew.
No.
That's why I didn't know about that.
There you go. I love Claremont was like, why did I write that? And he's like, take it out.
Or the editor.
Or the editor. Yeah.
All right, so the team gets
It sounds like an Austin Powers gag.
It does. It does. We didn't even talk about the team getting to the how do they even get there? How do they get past security? Right? Like they go in costume and they get put in space suits.
They do, yeah.
So in the classic X-Men issue 7, they have a page where they talk about it.
Oh, they do. Oh, okay. So in the new one, they talk about it.
But I gotta tell you, it doesn't add anything. It's not drawn by anyone.
Okay.
Actually, I do have to show it to you.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Okay.
Are they in the danger room? They're always in the danger room.
It's there.
Oh, okay, there they are.
There's a panel of the guys in the control room. Then it shows the X-Men arriving in trench coats.
Yeah.
Under a bit of fog.
Trench coats always work as a disguise.
And then they go into a locker room where there's no other staff, and they go to get dressed.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Storm's taking off a trench coat with her, superhero costume.
Okay, so she's just
Colossus is in metal coloring, but not drawn metal.
Oh, right, yeah.
And here's the biggest gaffe. They put on this big chunky costume.
Yeah.
Do you see who Cyclops is putting the backpack on?
I can see the helmet, kind of. Who is that? Wolverine.
Who's
Wolverine.
not there? Who's not?
So it's funny how they fix things 10 years later. They still get that wrong.
They got it wrong. It's terrible.
So there you go.
So that page is a waste of your time. That's why I skipped over it until I realized.
And it's not interracial nor intersexual, so I don't want it.
Right. So they go up the, what do they call this? The
my NASA lingo is not fresh. What do they call it?
Anyway, up the elevator
to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Storm references her claustrophobia.
Mm-hmm.
In her dialogue there.
Which is a reoccurring backstory piece for her.
Yes, which has been laid from the beginning.
Right. That's right.
Is good. And Colossus isn't managing so well.
It's certainly not.
No. And he eventually bursts out of his suit, calls to his brother, Mikhail.
His dead brother.
Dead brother, Mikhail, who was a cosmonaut and who died.
Yeah.
And again, another example of them using the international languages. He calls Nightcrawler Tovarish. As a kid, I loved hearing the different terms for characters that were affectionate. You call the young lady Fraulein, and from German. And, I really liked hearing all that stuff. So it made the characters more alive for me as a 10-year-old. Now it seems really tokenistic. But this is for a 10-year-old, essentially. So
comics are written for 10-year-olds.
Well, these ones are.
These ones are.
And I, as we've said before, is also, I think, and Chris Claremont is elevating it. I think he is bringing in language that appeals to maybe just over, maybe 12-year-old, 13-year-old, etc. And this is part of the process that's going to lead us up to 1986 when we get Watchmen and Dark Knight, and comics have been aging, with the reader as opposed to always targeting 10 to 12-year-olds. They take a quantum leap toward adult readers in 86. So we're edging toward that. We're on a 10-year sprint toward making comics for grown-ups.
Right.
Mainstream comics for grown-ups, let me say.
Sure.
And this is in Claremont's use of literary references and more complicated sentences and just richer use of vocabulary slowly edge us toward that, I think, incrementally. I also think that drawing of Colossus in the bottom left is really bang on for the version we see of him for the next 5 years. I think that just is like prototypically Colossus's face. A really good example of that. But anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and they take off into space.
That's a really good takeoff page. Like the blast off is cool. And the counting down 5, with the 5 different characters and their thoughts for 5 seconds are kind of neat. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I want to also mention in, the previous page, speaking of references, I believe they mention on this page here, where they mention that the thing they broke out of is actually Shield's orbital platform.
Yes.
So there you go. So we have a reference to Shield right there, which made me think of the Nick Fury who was in the bottom right corner of the previous issue.
Who was running around.
Running around. There you go.
Yeah.
So you got some Shield stuff happening in the background.
Very much is part of the Marvel Universe. Yeah. Oh, the ads. My gosh.
It's a whole other show. Okay, Starcore.
Yeah. So up they go.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of time given to like how they get to their destination and the there's a lot of time like in the spaceship and it's not gonna work, it's working. How are you feeling? Not good. A lot of that. And
then they're trying to, Claremont is trying to lay the foundation that there is something happening cosmically in this area, right? It's like the worst solar storms in recorded history. So there is a group that is orbiting much closer to the sun, and they are, communicating. And Dimitri and Hillary are some of the characters that are there.
Yep.
You know who those characters are?
Do I know who those characters are?
No. They're just names that are being thrown around.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to see them again, but they're part of this for a moment.
Mm-hmm. And cut to Ireland.
Well, yeah. So the team's going up, and then it cuts to Ireland, and we get a weird scene. I have not been to Ireland, but don't the cars drive on the opposite side of the road compared to here?
No, that's only in England.
Oh, really? And Scotland too, yeah?
Well, I guess the UK, then maybe not the Republic of Ireland, but like in France, they're on the same side of the road that we are here.
Right, but so the reason I say this is that car is parked.
Right.
It is the same as here. Be that as it may, whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we get an interlude in Ireland, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Not far from Dublin, half-hour drive out of central Dublin.
It's really it's a really strange placement of this cut-in story.
Totally.
It's it's some kind of just it's to build on the storylines with Banshee. So, but it's just a really weird placement.
Maybe it will be meaningful for the way that the pages are laid out in future, but I don't know that to be the case.
No.
So yeah. Anyway.
And we meet Black Tom, or at least he refers to himself as Black Tom.
Yes.
A Banshee antagonist.
Yes, we're gonna see. It's like his cousin. There's a lawyer who's trying to warn Sean Cassidy, the Banshee, and he is murdered in cold blood by Black Tom, who we're gonna meet later.
Who also has a beaten stick, but
he
a fire stick.
Yeah, shooting beaten stick.
Shooting laser beaten stick.
Pretty impressive. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, dark moment. Then there's another scene in this classic X-Men issue, which is more about the Hellfire Club, but it's so badly drawn. It's setting up the Hellfire Club stuff. They really are trying to establish them as a major part of this narrative about the Phoenix Saga.
Yeah.
Back to Dr. Stephen Lang.
It takes forever for them to actually kind of engage with them, right?
He's got really evil look on his face.
He does. He's an evil guy.
He is. So the space shuttle is rocketing towards Shield's base, their orbital base, and Lang tries to pilot to outmaneuver the Sentinels that come to stop them, and they get hit, and Storm gets pulled out into the vacuum of space.
She does.
Colossus is suffocating.
Oh, look at the way the storm bubble is, the red. That stood out for me. Nightcrawler has said storm, but like even it's a red bubble with white letters inside.
Yes. Oh, I actually meant to, speaking of Nightcrawler, I think it was earlier when Colossus is struggling.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler is talking about
Adventure.
adventure. That's what I wanted to just make a quick note of, was
Mhm.
that how a huge part of his characterization is the swashbuckler.
Mhm.
The love of adventure. Like the idea that we get later in both the cartoon and in the movies is heavily religious for the character.
Yeah, they've done
He is
that.
so deeply religious and almost monk-like in a lot of ways. And in the cartoon, I think he was actually living as a monk, in a monastery as a way to hide. But that is not part of the character at this point in the comics. He is an adventurer right down to his core. He is charming with the ladies. He takes pleasure in extraordinary elements to combat, and he's loving this space ride. So it's he's not this timid pacifist. He's down for the adventure, and this is the version of him that I fell in love with. And just putting that out there, that we're not seeing the future signs of him that we will eventually see.
And never let it be known that S.H.I.E.L.D. as a government agency also doesn't undergo budget cuts, because in panel 2 of the page on the left, it actually talks about that was years ago before budget cuts forced S.H.I.E.L.D. to abandon its space station. So don't ever think that S.H.I.E.L.D. is a unlimited resource of they too. I mean, so they're a line item, and so someone looks at that line item and goes, "Geez, I don't know. I mean, do we really need that orbital space station?"
Just let it sit up there. I'm sure it'll be fine.
There's this private company here who just wants to buy it outright. They seem like okay folks. Give it to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, Lang, as a way to plug the hole in the space shuttle that is still functioning, he crashes it, yelling Geronimo.
Corbo crashes it. Yeah.
Sorry, Corbo. Thank you. He crashes it into the side.
Wouldn't just have the same effect? It's the same. You're putting a hole in a bigger spaceship.
Well, I think he makes his angling is so good. He makes a perfect deal.
But they even say don't do it too hard or we can't get home. He crashed. This is the best crash of all time.
This part is insane.
Yeah, it really is.
Crashing into the side of the space station is a way to get out of the spaceship and to solve the problem of being caught in space. It doesn't. Let's just get past it because it doesn't hold up in any way.
Done.
Like it's stupid. And then Storm has a little space battle.
Yeah.
With the Sentinel, and her weather powers somehow enable her to fly in space.
Yeah, it's Space Storm.
Space Storm. The lightning I don't have a problem with. Her conducting electricity, I don't think I have a problem with in my comic book science mind. But her maneuvering, I mean,
the cosmic winds.
Cosmic winds, sure.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm looking at that second page. That looks just wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what was wrong with that first page. Was it actually the plates were wrong?
Right.
Look at that.
I know.
It is.
I know. That's what I said.
I almost spoke in Yiddish. I was like, "That's verkackt."
Also, that Sentinel screams as she defeats him. Ah!
Yes.
Are Sentinels meant to have human traits like that?
I don't have a comment.
I don't know.
Yeah. That is your page 17, is it?
17 is, yeah.
That's awesome. It is really ugly.
It is.
Of course, the version I'm reading has been fixed. I'm sorry you had to read that. Are there any other pages that have this?
No, I think this is pretty much it.
Craptastic coloring. So it's just like something went wrong in the process, and I can't really quite figure out what the deal is. But we'll just move on from it.
Right.
So in the scene, we have a fight. So there's no issue with the space station any longer, right?
I guess not. I guess it's stabilized somehow.
Yeah, they've just overall gotten past the fact that there's this problem, and they're just fighting, and Yeah, fighting Sentinels. Fun times.
Yep.
Nightcrawler rescues Cyclops before he's exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Then they hola.
They do a little team up maneuver because they've been practicing on a catapult in the danger room, and there just happens to be one there.
There's this really fun moment where they're talking about the Russian Olympic team or Russian gym.
Yes,
I did not look up who Olga Korbut is.
Korbut was, yeah.
Did you look it up?
No.
But I love that Colossus's response is like, my dear friend, Comrade Korbut is a dedicated and conscientious artist of the Soviet people. You should not make fun of her so. He says this all while smashing the head off of a Sentinel.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
He is.
I can't believe also the Nightcrawler has the necessary force to send Colossus into the air, springing up off.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah. Good fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's for sure fun.
They're smashing, and then Cyclops smashes the last one right through.
Yeah.
And they talk about how these are a weaker group of Sentinels. These aren't powerful.
Yes. And then Colossus loses it.
He does.
Because this is again, we've talked about this theme of women being in trouble and the men losing it. You know, we saw it with Havoc and Polaris. We saw it with Cyclops and Jean, and now we're seeing it with Colossus and Storm.
Yeah, and you act as if you do not even care? Well, Colossus cares!
Colossus cares. Zangief cares.
And, of course, Storm is fine. She shows up there, no problem. And Colossus basically picks her up as if he's about to hug her.
Yeah.
He's really, really happy to see her. And that, again, the bond is growing with these characters.
Yeah. But you know what I love is you think that maybe he's got a thing there, maybe he's got extra attention for Storm, and right away she calls him young one. She puts him in his place.
I love it.
I'm like, oh, that would kill anything that you would have,
or make you more interested. Or like older woman, but that panel is drawn.
Yeah,
suggestively. Like that is the panel that precedes a kiss.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
And they don't become a couple. I don't know if they ever, like maybe one writer along the way has tried. But I think that would have been a nice story.
Yeah.
They make a nice pair. They're both, pure of heart.
Couple of sweethearts.
Yeah, they're good characters. Then of course Scott is being communicated to intensely telepathically by Jean, and gets some instruction as to where they are, and they regroup to go find their teammates. And Cyclops is like out for blood, like you can just see it.
He shows everybody his teeth, and his teeth means he means it.
Commonly, when Cyclops has a glint or rage in his eye, it favors the outer edge of his visor. As opposed to the middle. So I would expect like the glint to be over his right eye, out the edge of that side, not in the middle of the whole thing. Right. But if he is a Cyclops, then it's fine. But he wants Stephen Lang.
He wants Lang. And so he
alone.
Yeah. Busts through the door.
Yep.
Shoots him. I want to say he clearly doesn't shoot him full power, but you think he might. But you think that optic blast go right through his chest, just kind of knocks him around a bit.
Sure. And then Cyclops just beats on him. Which is again really rare to see.
Yep. You're killing him, Scott.
I'm all in for it. Like, go ahead, beat on the. That's. Yeah. Who lets the other? I guess Lang lets. Sorry, Corbeau lets them out. Yeah, he says free Jean and the Professor Corbeau. Yeah. I'll deal with Mr. Lang.
I'll deal with this guy.
Just beat some pounds on the guy. You never see any of those punches land. It's all off camera.
It is. And then it says on the bottom, continued after next page. Oh, thank you.
Right. That's really common when they have an ad for 2 pages.
Right. Spider-Man.
A lot of comics back then also used to have multiple stories.
Spider-Man and the Twinkie Takers, just going to let you. The Twinkie Takers, just going to let you.
The artist who did that is probably somebody good and notable.
Probably. And Stan Lee's Soapbox. Okay, this is too much fun to read. We'll go to the next one. Okay, here we go.
I always just look through to see if there's ever was it a letters column or just Stan Lee?
Stan Lee's Soapbox, and then there we go. Yeah.
And then here we are at the end, and someone's coming up behind them, and what, another Sentinel? And Cyclops gets hit, and they see the cast shadow. Oh no, it can't be you.
That's right.
And for whatever reason, Lang is holding Cyclops. Like it looks so. It's a weird.
Yeah.
That's an odd image.
It's an odd.
That one doesn't read totally well.
Yeah, you're right.
Interesting. And I love the beat up face of Lang. It's really,
that is actually quite good.
He swelled up real quick.
He real did, yeah.
But some good drawing there. And then the X-Men burst through in an excellent panel.
Yeah. It's a good burst panel.
I'm tempted to make a corner box out of that, like a custom one, where I redraw, like just a little bit of refiguring, but do a corner box of that team, maybe for our channel, like for this kind of thing.
Good point.
I think it'd be a really neat image. T-shirt too.
Oh yeah.
I'm digging that one a lot. And then Banshee, all of you, look. I'm looking, but I'm a far, far piece from believing. I love how Cockrum has figured out how to do Banshee's hair by now.
Yeah,
it's much better.
It's got some sick flow to it.
Space hair,
space Banshee hair
is much better.
And that
joke, is it not?
And that last page is that's a solid last page.
We get a great page.
It is a really great page, actually.
Where we see the previous iteration of the X-Men before the series went into reprints for many years. We see the original 5 X-Men and Professor Xavier, and he's commanding the original X-Men to kill these new X-Men. And the reader should be thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on? How can this be?
It gets me excited for issue 100, I'll tell you that much.
Right. It's with the old and with the new. And there's a few good matches. You know, obviously the stereotype, woman versus woman.
Sure.
Flyer versus flyer.
Flyer versus flyer, yeah. And
agile versus agile.
Yep.
And the we don't care versus the we don't care.
Sure. And the leader versus leader.
And leader, which implies then leader versus leader.
Right.
Which is neat to, again, position them in that way.
And the other ones, Iceman and Wolverine.
Right. Like no one cares. No one has invested in these characters. But of course, that will all change very, very quickly. The other thing I think is interesting about this is looking forward to the cover. The cover is, again, this image drawn anew of the next
issue 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the splash page in issue 100 is this again. So they do not rethink. They basically use this concept for 3 pages or 3 images in a row.
Wow.
I wonder how Dave Cockrum felt about drawing this 3 times. Because it's never the same drawing.
Now, based on, I mean, this could be a very interesting conversation, but based on the power sets of the old X-Men and the new X-Men, I'm much more of a fan of the new X-Men, as I think probably most people are, which is why they, relaunched it and revamped it. It became the success that we're talking about. So much more interesting as a power set than those originals, right?
Banshee, I don't find I have any connection to.
Yeah, I mean, good point. But even Angel's like a guy who flies.
Yeah, and the wings are weird. Is he part bird? Are there?
Right.
It is. It's a weird one. Obviously, Beast is very strong too, but not in Colossus's class.
No, exactly. And Storm's power set is pretty broad.
It is, but she also is like a kind of a nice upgrade from the 60s version. Like I'll say the Silver Age women in Marvel, who are famously all head touchers.
Yes.
Or
right, Invisible Girl,
they're all diminished.
Girl.
And the Wasp. Like
right.
one is, one can think things, one can be unseen, and one shrinks so much that you also can't see her. these were, not feminist models, of what a superhero female could be. Storm, on the other hand, throws lightning bolts at people.
Yeah.
And can, knock over buildings with her wind. She's a much more dominant figure. So it's kind of like, a nice upgrade in terms of having a female character that hasn't been diminished because they're creating a female character like they did with the original 3.
Totally.
There's something there. And I mean, I love this team. Do you want to hear a quick anecdote about their action figure counterparts?
Of course.
So last year, or maybe 2 years ago, they finally came out with this version of Storm. And
as a Marvel
Legends, yes, from Hasbro. Okay. So this version of Colossus has been out for about 2 years or 3. It's hard to keep track now with the pandemic. Nightcrawler's been out for about 3. Wolverine about the same. Like, they did a really good run on X-Men for a while there. But the head of marketing, he's the head of maybe production or design. His name is Dwight. He's made it really clear that he never wants to make another Banshee action figure. He said that if they make a Banshee, that's the last figure he'll make. Like, he's leaving when they make a Banshee. Okay. So for a collector like me who loves Marvel Legends and loves his Bronze Age Marvel Legend character, so we're talking 70s through about 86, I want, all the characters from my childhood, and I can't finish this team. I've got Sunfire, I've got Thunderbird, I've got, everyone. I've got Marvel Girl in that outfit we see in front of us.
No Banshee.
No Banshee. He's the only one who's missing. Yeah. It's funny.
You have to crowdfund that, man. It's going to be the Sentinel, and then it's going to be Banshee.
The Sentinel's insane. Our friend Kevin has that. Friend of the channel, toying around.
Friend of the channel.
Yeah, Kevin has that. I haven't seen it yet, but when it's a better time, we'll go to his place and take a look. But yeah, there you go. Overall, I thought this was a rather weak issue, considering what it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think I agree with you. The ending is great. The clone or whatever going off with team versus team is a great setup.
Did you read ahead?
What, have I read ahead? No, not yet.
So you don't know if they're clones, if they're Skrulls, if robots, if they are the X-Men.
Are they the original X-Men? Exactly.
No. Is it a time travel thing? Is it
is it multiple men wearing 5 different disguises?
Exactly, which is or is it like an illusion? Mm-hmm. There are so many different things.
Is it magic? Like there's so
right. So you haven't read ahead. Of course, yeah, I've read ahead, but I just hope that they don't resolve this cliffhanger in like the first page of there's be the splash page,
yeah,
and then the next page put bubbles around them. I hope they don't page 2 time travel and then just undo the time travel button and they disappear. I don't want that. I want it to be something meaningful.
You want Count Neferi to come back?
Oh, and the Animen. Oh yeah.
Actually, it's the Animen, and they're just in disguises.
Oh, true. What was that frog guy's name again?
Croaker. I've already reached out to Hasbro. I'm like, Croaker, please.
I need my Croaker figure.
I don't care about Banshee, but you better give me Croaker.
Yes. I think one of the problems with Banshee is that the screaming mouth.
Right.
They don't want to make the figure again. There is an older version of Banshee.
There is an old before Marvel Legends. I remember there was
Banshee. In the early days of Marvel Legends when it wasn't Hasbro, when it was Toy Biz. It's one of the ugliest action figures of its time.
But you need to get it to complete your X-Men. No. I
will wait. I also really want that Angel. They haven't made that Angel in modern.
Right.
I love him in the blue or in the red with the yellow gloves. Whatever version they give us.
He's an Archangel, right?
I have an Archangel, and it's fine. Yeah. But it isn't what I want. But we'll get there. One day, patient man. There's no rush. So yeah, I thought this issue was certain parts are drawn out, certain parts are rushed over, and I would have probably done the exact opposite. I'm not. I'm not sure how much like adventure is actually happening, or they're just putting obstacles in the way of the team just to pad out these issues before they're getting to issue 100, and they're trying to do something at issue 100.
It felt like an issue to get to another issue.
Yeah, it definitely does, and that's fine. But again, we're at the dawn of the Phoenix Saga, which I don't know if it's actually ever called the Phoenix. I know we use the phrase Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
And that is in like, I don't know, 30 issues or sooner. But the overall arc of Claremont's thing where like Phoenix becomes Phoenix and then eventually gets turned dark, that takes a long time. But they, again, plant these seeds and it just gets, it really goes and goes. So we're at the beginning of that. We are now, 10 issues away from obviously X-Men 109, which is the first appearance of Guardian as Weapon Alpha. And we are 9 issues away from there for X-Men 108, which is John Byrne's first.
There you go.
And once Byrne gets on the book, it becomes a #1 selling title, and you're gonna have your mind blown. But I'm hoping that Cockrum is gonna again continue to kind of improve and find his legs, draw these characters better and better as we see the birth of a new X-Men, as the X-Men save the universe. These are all things in the next coming weeks we're going to see.
Cool.
We're going to see Magneto. We're going to see the Juggernaut. We're going to see some other staples of the X-Men universe. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
we get to see what happens to the Death Star.
But don't even address it. Like, it's just the word death and the word star. That's all they were doing there.
But Lucas picked it up and was like, Death Star. Death Star.
So, like many other fans, I have a graphic novel that is an adaptation of one of the earlier drafts of Lucas's script. I don't know if you've ever read it, called The Star Wars.
No.
It is, as a Star Wars fan, it's worth talking about at another time and place.
Sure.
It's definitely worth reading. Again, it's like before the script is looked at by other human beings. So that they've taken that early draft and just done a very good drawing, very good illustrative adaptation of that script. And it is hilarious at some of the similarities to some elements from the prequels are in it. There's elements from Return of the Jedi that are in it. It has like no direction in terms of like a focus. It's just so much is going on in it. And like Vader is not who Vader is. Skywalker isn't who Skywalker is. Right. It's bizarre, but my point was going to be, I wonder if it's called the Death Star at that point or not. I'm going to look it up in a moment when we finish this.
But you look it up and you text me. You let me know.
Yes, and as usual. And when we see each other again in this form next Tuesday, I'm hoping, I will have just met my future puppy that day.
That's darn exciting. That is darn exciting.
The kids and I and Laura are going driving for a few hours to the west, past you, just past London, Ontario, to choose our puppy from its little litter.
What a day!
I will come back smelling like puppy.
I will be able to smell it through the screen.
Yes, I'll be shaking my tail the whole time. I'll be so happy. So I'll be in a great mood next week.
That's awesome.
Today. There you go, man.
Okay.
Previously an X-Men, issue 99, episode 7.
Nice. The Wayne Gretzky of X-Men issues in the books.
Actually, I'm going to correct you, or I'm going to oppose that. I'm going to say it's the Wilf Paymont.
Don't do that. What if we said it was late career Gretzky, like the St. Louis Blues version of Gretzky?
Well, come on, he took the team to the playoffs and got beat by Eiserman in overtime, but he was still good. Come on,
he was still good. You're right.
This issue wasn't the best.
The Brent Gretzky. Nah, it's not the same number. But Wilf Paymont's a good one. That's a solid reference.
Thank you. The back cover is
that's really nice.
Yeah, it's just lots of talk about like the power struggle. So these issues of Classic X-Men, as we've talked about, they have backup stories, usually 15 pages or so, or maybe even more, and they flesh out some of the various threads that Claremont, and in this case, like most, artist John Bolton, they flesh out these sort of side stories and backstories at a much slower pace.
Right.
But again, they have like a decade's hindsight as to what elements they want to talk about. And this one, it's the Hellfire Club, and it's the rise of like the inner circle of the Hellfire Club to their position.
White Queen, Black Queen.
Right. Sebastian Shaw being the Black
Kevin
King.
Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, yes. And there is a anti-mutant guy at the head of the Hellfire Club who's using the Hellfire Club and connecting to the Sentinels, and he's with Stephen Lang, that whole thing, and to eradicate mutants. It's some sort of, massively racist, genocidal agenda. And they discover that in this story that he's doing that, and they eliminate him. He shows his hand and makes an attempt on everyone's life, like the mutants that are part of the Hellfire Club, to eliminate them, and they are able to turn the tide and get rid of him.
Eliminate him.
Yeah, and that's sort of when they ascend to power without any opposition. Okay. But it's like slow burn stuff, and it's definitely for more mature readers. There's like,
I always like the look of the look of the goons, the Hellfire Club goons.
Yeah,
like,
Hasbro just made a set of those.
I like those
characters, and I fast on them. Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah.
But boy, the White Queen, Emma Frost. What are you gonna do? There you go, Chris.
Apparently, you're just gonna not have her wear any clothes.
It's a weird element of comics in this time period. Really weird. It's going good to see you.
You too, man.
Go watch the remainder of the Leaf game if you can.
Go Leafs.
Go Leafs, absolutely. Let's see how they're doing. Edmonton's lost, 5 in a row?
I don't know, have they?
And Toronto's won only, I think, 2 of the last 5.
So
it's both teams are, having a struggle.
Yeah.
But at least play Tampa Bay in that group of 5. I wouldn't say it's a struggle. It's Tampa Bay. It's fair. Anyway, that's it, man. Group of 7 Comics, previously in X-Men. Check us out at group of7comics.ca, the number 7 on that's our website. You can find us at Group of 7 Comics, the number 7 on all social media platforms.
All the socials. You can find our friend Chris here at Chris Sanagan. That's me.
On Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Jason Lapidus Art on Instagram, at Jason Lapidus on Facebook and Twitter. And I do not visit Twitter very often. I should just sync it up to my Instagram and just have it posted both, but I have not done that yet. And that is us, and that is that. Okay. And look at this. Toying Around is visiting for a moment. Catch this on the replay. Yeah, please do, Kev. You get a shout out. Yeah, and we talked about you tonight on the show.
In a good way.
Perhaps. Depends on your taste. And I'm excited. I might see Kevin in a couple days for a little exchange of trading things in the collection where I'm getting at an 18.
Yes. I'm eager to see how that all turns out.
So I'm excited for that. There you go.
Cool.
Other than that, we're done, bud.
Peace.
All right. See you next time.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye. I'll talk to you in 5 minutes.